Origin Code Academy. Our job is to get you one.
Welcome to Origin Talks. I'm Jeff Winkler, CEO of Origin Code Academy, and I'm here today with Steve Andrews, the CEO of Platinum Bay. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your background in software.
So I've been a software engineer for about 17 years. I taught myself programming. Actually got started back in middle school. I went to a school for folks with dyslexia and other learning disabilities, and they were mid-90s, very into accommodative technology. And so they had a whole Macintosh lab, and I got into computers and started learning programming. And then after high school, I bought a computer and sat in front of it for like 18 hours a day for 6 months and taught myself enough to fake my way into my first junior level job.
Okay.
And so I learned, classic ASP or ASP.old, and I learned SQL Server like 6 or whatever it was back then, and personal web server, and all that fun stuff I learned about back then, and I just kind of taught myself.
Okay. And then transitioning after your first junior developer role, talk a little bit about like what happened after that. Like how did you kind of progress in your career?
That was the 90s, so I jumped around a bit. I kind of went from company to company, which I think was, for me, was valuable because I got to see a lot of different environments. I got to see a lot of different business thinking, a lot of different technical thinking, work with a lot of different people, and so it gave me kind of a broader perspective. And so I spent the better part of 7 years working for a enterprise financial services company doing high net worth asset management. And if you've never been in the enterprise space, that really shifts your perspective.
So then after that, I know you were involved with Microsoft a little bit. Can you talk about your shift from enterprise software to like giant, like the elephant of the industry?
I don't know if I'd necessarily call Microsoft an elephant, because most people think of Microsoft as one big giant blob entity, and really it's kind of like HR for 5,000 smaller companies. Microsoft is definitely an interesting place to work. They have so many different teams doing so many different things, and they have feature teams, and hey, I'm the guy who built the text box for this thing,
Right.
Almost at that level. But it's phenomenal. I mean, every team's different, every team's doing different things, but it's a lot of fun.
And then afterwards you chose to go and like speak and give talks. Is that right? Like what kind of motivated you to go that route? But what would you say some of your hot buttons with, or things that you feel super passionate about tech-wise are super important to you when giving those talks to like other developers?
There's 3 things that I think are really, really critical that seem to be the last things anybody thinks about. One is testing. And there's so many places out there that don't do testing or do testing poorly. Another one is maintainability. And again, no one thinks about why do we never have time to do it right, but we always have time to do it over, right?
Yeah.
And maintainability is super critically important. In fact, it's probably the most important thing to think about when developing software. And the third is user experience. And how many websites and products out there still feel like they were developed 20 years ago? They haven't changed, they haven't updated, they're hard to use, they don't understand the context that the user is in. So those 3 topics are really important to me.
Okay. What are kind of some of your main objectives and the mission of why you started Platinum Bay?
Yeah, so Platinum Bay is a software products and services company specially designed from the ground up to employ autistic adults at market salary plus benefits. And so for me, I was diagnosed with Asperger's in Seattle in 2012. I was about 33 years old. And to say it profoundly changed my life would be an understatement. It was a pivotal life moment because I'd lived my whole life feeling fundamentally broken. Despite my career and the things I've accomplished, I faced a lot of challenges and I've had a lot of failures. And to finally have answers that make sense was just life-changing. So I started doing a whole lot of research. I said, okay, I want to know everything there is to know about this thing we call autism. And one of the things I discovered is that, of the millions of autistic folks out there, there is, some say, as high as 80 to 90% unemployment or underemployment. And there are so few resources out there. I thought, hey, what if I can combine my tech background and my tech experience with my experience of being autistic and all this new knowledge to create a workplace where autistic folks can be successful. And so that's what led the Platinum Bay.
Okay. In terms of lack of resources, which is something we experienced here at Origin, why do you feel like there's such a lack of resources, especially here in Southern California, but even in this country at the moment?
A lot of it comes from a lack of understanding of what autism is and how to best support it. And it's hard across disabilities. It's not just autism. It's any number of things, ADHD and dyslexia, and there tends to be a little more accommodation for the physical disabilities that somebody can see, if they're in a wheelchair, things like that. It's much harder to understand and provide supports and accommodations for the non-physical stuff that's going on with folks. Things like sensory issues. I wear sunglasses even on cloudy days in Seattle because to me, light is brighter than it is to most people. You could turn off all the lights in the office and I'd be able to see just fine, even at night. Nah, probably not. Sound, most people in a conversation can filter out the background noise, right? Most people's brains tend to filter out 99% of their environment. To me, I hear people talking in the next room and I hear the HVAC system and I hear, rustling and I hear every noise, and so I have to cognitively process out those sounds. In fact, there's times where somebody's talking to me and you'll say something to me, the first thing that goes through my brain, the first thing I hear is blah, 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 right? Doesn't actually sound like that, but it's gobbledygook. And about a second later it replays and I can understand it. And so there's sensory processing issues. There are, social, and while social is a secondary indicator in autism, not a primary identifier, it is still something that a lot of autistic folks struggle with, is eye contact and body language and kind of that social empathy side of empathy. And politics. I suck at politics, right? Many times in my career, I'd go up to the VP or whoever and be like, "You're wrong," right? And to me, it's like I'm sharing information, I'm helping us, helping us learn and grow, but that's not really the way things get done, right? And I've learned. And then there's the executive function side of it. And that's where a lot of folks struggle as well. Things like time management and organization skills and prioritization and things like that. One of the things we recommend to businesses when working with autistic folks, and Temple Grandin recommends this as well, is clear and consistent written instructions. Because if you give me 5, 10 tasks in a row that I have to do this and this and this, I've forgotten everything after the first one, maybe the second one, if I'm lucky. So they're having those things written down and a little help to prioritize and organize. The flip side of it, though, is when we look at autistic folks, we typically see commonality around, high intelligence and attention to detail and intense focus and creative out-of-the-box problem-solving skills. And they tend to be honest and loyal. And these are folks we should be hiring. There's millions of autistic folks in the US, and they can change the way we do business with just a little extra understanding of supports. But there aren't a lot of those today. And so that's part of what my company is working on, and I'm in partnership with other organizations and nonprofits and whatnot to work on that as well, is to create more supports for autistic folks.
So in terms of projects that you're working on at Platinum Bay currently, what's like the ideal client for you, or what specifically, why choose Platinum Bay for software?
So we focus on 3 main things. Obviously, we're all developers and we can do custom app dev, but we primarily focus on custom automation, integration, and application modernization. And these are 3 areas where I'm finding a lot more need in the mid-sized to enterprise space, which is what we target, specifically in healthcare, financial services, manufacturing, and commercial freight. So part of our big pitch when we go out and talk to customers is that high quality code, that attention to detail, that focus on the testing aspect, on the maintainability aspect, on that code quality aspect, because again, it costs significantly less to do it right today than it does to do it right tomorrow. I mean, by orders of magnitude. And so by having a team that can develop high quality, highly maintainable, highly tested code today ensures that that business is saving money in the future.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for joining us today. And again, thanks for coming out, Steve. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.